What's your favorite spy movie or TV show? Spy TV show, I guess.
I don't know, but when I was little, I played this video game called Spy Fox in Dry Cereal. And that's all I remember of it. But anyway.
I remember this game.
Have a favorite.
Wasn't that by like the same company that did like Putt Putt and
Yeah,
Pajama
it was.
Sam? Yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
That was so good.
I'm really tempted to say my favorite spy movie is Spy Kids, but I think that's just because I rewatched Spy Kids 1 and 2 recently.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. I think my actual favorite, like spy, it's a TV show actually, but it's the show called Chuck. Have you ever heard of Chuck?
Oh, yeah, Chuck.
Yeah. It's on like
Chuck.
NBC, like 2010, 2012, something like that.
Yeah, I know Chuck.
I love that fucking show. So Chuck came out at the perfect time for me because, you know, it's about this guy that essentially works for like the Geek Squad at Best Buy.
Oh, yeah.
And at the time that it came out, I worked for the Geek Squad at Best Buy. So it was, which is a terrible job, by the way, or at least it was at the store I was at. So it was like some really relevant escapism. And so I really loved Chuck when it came out.
Hey, Danny, I have a confession.
Yeah.
I don't know Chuck.
You don't know Chuck?
I don't know Chuck. I'm sorry, I lied.
Why would you do that to me?
Because that's what spies do, baby.
Right.
You're listening to Dot Femme.
Welcome to Dot Femme. I'm your host, Danielle Gonzalez.
I'm Claire. What are we in for today?
Well, today we're going to be talking about the Chevalier d'Eon. And by the way, if there are any French listeners listening to this podcast, feel free to critique all of my French pronunciation. I will have you know, I had it checked by a good friend of mine, Kate, who studied French in high school.
Nice.
And so she gave me all of the high school level proper French pronunciation. So if there's a problem with my pronunciation, it's her fault.
Great. I love this. I'm gonna butcher it. Just gonna butcher it all.
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
Embrace it like I am. It's not gonna be good.
Well, I guess we can jump right into it. So this is an individual who lived in France in the mid to late 1700s.
Cool.
So we're going back a little ways.
So, like, what's the brief synopsis of this, like, episode? Because I actually have never heard anything about this. So I'm really curious on learning about this person and hearing, it's like, what are we in for?
Well, I suppose you'll just have to discover that at the same time the audience does, won't you?
Along the way?
Yeah. That's how learning works.
All right. Let's try it. Let's do this thing.
All right. So, Chevalier d'Eon. I guess we could just refer to them as Charles d'Eon or Charlotte d'Eon. Was born in 1728 in Burgundy, France, into a lesser French noble family. So not like super rich noble, but not, not noble. So does that make sense? Kind of.
I think so.
Lower like on the nobility totem pole, but still noble.
Yeah. They were like a lord or of some sort or something.
Yeah, something like that. So d'Eon's father was Louis d'Eon de Beaumont. He was an attorney and later the mayor of Tonnerre, which is the town where d'Eon was born. d'Eon's mother was Françoise de Charenton. She was the daughter of a commissioner general to the armies during the wars between France and Spain and Italy. So not a ton is known about d'Eon's early life. What little bit we do know comes from a partly ghost-written autobiography called The Interests of the Chevalier d'Eon de Beaumont. We do know that d'Eon excelled in school and studied civil law and canon law at the College of Mazarin in Paris. And they graduated in 1749 at age 21. So kind of a prodigy of sorts. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm just out of touch and it took me way too long to get through college, but I don't remember a ton of people graduating at 21. So
yeah, I mean, maybe it's different over there, like 21, 21 is the golden age to graduate.
Sure.
I actually don't know. No, that's interesting. That's also like a very different time in educational history too.
That's true. Like 200 years ago. Yeah. So,
or
300 years ago, actually. After graduating, Déon began their career as a contributor to the Année littéraire, which was a fairly well-known but sort of controversial, like political commentary newspaper of sorts. And it was there that they began to be noticed as a political writer. In 1756, the first year of the 7 Years' War, I believe, Déon joined a secret network of spies that was called the Sacré du Roi, which means secret of the king. And they worked directly for King Louis XV without the knowledge of the rest of the government, actually. So just for the king. Doing whatever the king wanted, secret stuff.
Wild.
Yeah, pretty wild. According to Déon's memoirs, the king sent Déon with another spy on a secret mission to Russia around this time, shortly after they joined this secret society of spies. And their mission was to meet Empress Elizabeth to conspire with the pro-French faction opposing the Habsburg monarchy. You know, there's a lot of details here that I'm kind of glossing over because it would be like trying to talk about the entire life of George Washington or Thomas Jefferson in like a 20-minute podcast episode. There's a lot you're gonna not get into.
Yeah.
But
so like this whole thing, right? He comes in and he graduates college. And then at age 27, he immediately joins a secret network of spies. Like, that's quite the leap, you know? Like, that's not a lot of time to, like, settle in, you know? And then he's like, sent off to Russia.
Right.
Actually, wait, I don't know their pronouns.
They all lived a significant part of their life identifying as a man, and then another significant part of their life identifying as a woman. And I do believe they used both pronouns he and she at differing points in their life. So just for the sake of simplicity and consistency, I've been using they, them pronouns.
Okay.
But for this period of their life, he would be correct. So
interesting. Cool.
It's interesting that you bring up how quickly they were sort of inducted into the secret spy network. It's not because, like, you're right. 7 years is pretty fast to go from like a somewhat well-known political commentator in a newspaper to like secret spy, right? Supposedly, and that's a word that's going to do a lot of heavy lifting in this episode today, but supposedly, Déon had a very androgynous look about them, and the king noticed that and thought to himself, that person could be a very good spy because of how androgynous they are. And supposedly that's how they got the job. Again, supposedly he's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. But some of that might be true. During this mission to Russia, England and France were at odds. This is the first year of the 7 Years' War. So England and France are at war. And England was trying to deny access to the Empress of Russia. And the way that they did that was by only allowing women and children to cross the border into Russia.
Oh.
I don't know the specific like strategy there. It's probably because I don't think women were like government officials in France at this time. So women and children couldn't really make like official treaties or meet with the Empress on an official capacity, right?
Interesting.
I don't know. I'm not a French historian, but that would be my guess. Déon claimed to have traveled as a lady called Leah de Beaumont, and supposedly passed convincingly enough as one of the Empress's maids of honor that they crossed the border without any issue. Now, once they were already across the border, they had to maintain that ruse lest they be discovered by the British and killed. Wow. However, what's interesting is that there's little to no evidence that actually supports this story, and most historians to this day think that it's probably just a story that Déon enjoyed telling and embellishing.
Nice.
Who knows? Maybe it's true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not. Either way, we do know that Déon was a spy and that Déon was sent to Russia. And we know that because when Déon returned to France in late 1760, they were awarded a pension for service in Russia. So we do know that they were in Russia during this time as a spy. So maybe there's some truth to this story. After returning from Russia, Deon fought in the later stages of the 7 Years' War. They were wounded at a battle, and then afterwards they were considered for further service in Russia since they already kind of knew the lay of the land. But instead, they ended up being sent to London to draft the peace treaty that ended the 7 Years' War with Britain.
Wild.
After that treaty was signed, Deon was awarded the Order of Saint Louis, which is where they gained the title Chevalier, which is French for knight, and they became known as the Chevalier Deon. Deon then returned to England as an interim ambassador, and they used that position as interim ambassador to spy for the King of France, including collecting information on coastal English defenses and troop placements for a potential French invasion of Britain, which was apparently a foolish and failed operation that the king never told any of his ministers about.
Wow.
So that, I think, is just fascinating. Like, I had never heard of France maybe trying to invade England, but I guess that was on the table briefly. So that's interesting.
Deon was a part of it all.
That's right. In late 1763, a permanent ambassador was appointed, and apparently this person, Huashi, I believe is how you pronounce his name, didn't like the Chevalier all that much. They really clashed. I don't know what the reason for their personal drama was, but the permanent ambassador apparently didn't like the Chevalier enough that they demoted him to the rank of secretary, which is like, to go from interim ambassador to secretary, that's kind of a huge slap in the face.
Yeah, it's a leap.
Yeah, and the Chevalier was none too pleased about it. So they began kind of secretly railing against their superior, against Huashi, and released like secret letters and correspondence from their time as a spy for the king, which like this like booklet that they released of not all of this secret correspondence, but a significant portion of it was like the most scandalous thing that happened in that time period. And it was through releasing this booklet that the Chevalier became like particularly well known in both France and British like public circles. They had been pretty well known in like the political circles of both, you know, because that was the circles in which they operated. Now the public knew about them and they were kind of becoming a celebrity. And that's important later. So in order to try and sort of rein the Chevalier in, they tried to order them to return to France. And the Chevalier was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay right where I am. And they kind of continued to just live in London as a political exile. Wow. And during this time, as a political exile, they continued to work as a spy for the French. But make no mistake, relationships were tense. Oh, yeah. There was some strained like blood between the Chevalier and the French court.
Well, like, you know, so this is a good point because the Chevalier, am I saying that right? Chevalier, has you know, gone through an immense mission in Russia with great success. Then the king turns around and goes, okay, we want you to spy on England, to great failure, demoted by this new guy coming in. And I imagine that demotion to secretary had a lot of other, like, I don't know, turbulence surrounding it. That probably rubbed him the wrong way in a lot of ways. I don't know. I'm kind of siding with him here. Like, they're obviously distraught. They're obviously having a really tough time. And they're like, okay, cool. I'm just going to stay in London and live out, you know, the person that I always want to be. That's where the story goes, right? They transition and find themselves in like the perfect like life, right? Is that where the story goes?
Sort of.
Okay, great. Happy ending?
It's more complicated than you might think.
Okay. I'm surprised that they are still spying for France, though. Like that, yeah. I don't know. This story has so many twists and turns. I'm like, okay, God, I gotta keep on it.
I mean, I think politics is a particularly complicated issue, and you know, like even though the Chevalier may have felt spurned by certain members of the French court, and there were a lot of people that they probably didn't get along with. I think they were probably still very patriotic and had a lot of love for country, right? So that's probably why they kept, doing the work for France that they did.
True patriot.
But during D'Eon's time in London, we mentioned that by this point, the Chevalier is kind of in the public eye. And so rumors begin to circulate the Chevalier was actually born a woman and assigned female at birth. And in fact, and this, I didn't know this, and this blew my mind, but apparently a betting pool was started on the London Stock Exchange about the Chevalier's true gender.
Could you imagine that? Someone betting on whether or not you transitioned or not?
On the public stock exchange.
That's
crazy.
Okay, goals.
It's a business. That's mind-blowing to me. But they even invited D'Eon to join the betting pool to make a public wager on the bet themselves, which is why would you do that? Because only they know the true answer, so they'd win the bet no matter what. So I don't... I'm not a gambling person.
Jesus Christ.
But if I were a gambler, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That just seems like a bad move. But anyway, D'Eon declined to join the betting pool and said that, quote, an examination would be dishonoring whatever the result.
Such an eloquent way to say, don't you dare look at my genitals.
Right. So in 1774, King Louis XV dies. And after his death, the Secret du Roi, the Secret of the King, the secret society of spies that the Chevalier was a member of, was disbanded. And at this point, D'Eon tries to negotiate a return from exile so that they can return to France. It was about the Chevalier's life at this moment that a famous French historian, Madame Campan, who is a French educator and a writer who worked in the service of both Marie Antoinette and Napoleon Bonaparte, and she was a contemporary of the Chevalier, wrote about them in her memoirs. Quote, this eccentric being had long solicited permission to return to France, but it was necessary to find a way of sparing the family he had offended the insult they would see in his return. He was therefore made to resume the costume of that sex to which in France everything is pardoned. So, interesting entry in the memoirs right here, right? Because we're starting to see that maybe there's a kernel of truth to D'Eon passing as a woman as part of their spy work.
Wow.
Because Madame Campan mentions resume the costume of that sex.
Wow.
It does seem to have been not necessarily a choice that the Chevalier made for themselves. However,
I wonder what that's like to not have control over your own gender assigned at birth. Do you know anything about that, Danny?
No, there's no way I could possibly understand what that's like.
I have no idea either. Fascinating.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know.
Fascinating.
It's interesting, though, because during the negotiation to return to France, when all of this comes up, D'Eon did claim to have been assigned female at birth, but was only raised as a boy since their father could only inherit from their in-laws if he had had a son, and therefore he was raised as Charles D'Eon de Beaumont. And in fact, to this end, D'Eon demanded from the French government that they recognize her at this point as being a woman and assigned female at birth. A demand that the King Louis XVI and his court, they accepted it. But their one stipulation in order to accept that was that she had to dress appropriately in women's clothing. So was she forced, or was this something she wanted? Or was she forced and she fucking owned it? Who knows? But either way, it's pretty interesting, right?
Yep. This is, because there's no documents over their original sex assigned at birth, right?
Well,
we only have hearsay.
I don't know, but there is going to be a twist coming later, and we'll get into it.
Oh no! I feel like my brain just went through 5 twists, and there's another one.
This is one of the twistiest stories in trans history, I think, and I love it.
I love it too, but I'm starting to get confused.
As a Latina who secretly lives for like drama, oh, this is great.
This is great. I
So-
have like, oh my God. Go on.
These back and forth negotiations for Dayon to return to France take like 14 months. They're going back and forth for over a year. Finally, Dayon is allowed to return to France in 1777, but only after she got the king to agree to provide a pension for their previous service. And that pension had to include funds for a new full wardrobe of women's clothing. Y'all gonna make me dress like a woman? Y'all gonna
Can you
pay
imagine?
for it.
God damn it. Can you imagine transitioning and then like literally someone saying, here, yes, we're going to give you a pension and all of your clothes are handled under it. Oh my God. Goals.
That's the dream.
This is the dream.
It is?
Yeah. Goals. Forget all the other baggage that's going on at this point in her life. Goals.
So Dayon finally gets to return to France. She's now socially transitioned. She's living as the Chevalier Charlotte Dayon de Beaumont. Interestingly enough, the question was raised, is it appropriate for a woman to wear the Medal of the Order of Saint Louis, which she was awarded for her service in Russia?
Yeah.
She was allowed to continue wearing her medal
Good.
with the rest of her clothes. So she is considered the first woman to win that award, which is,
Wild.
kind of interesting.
So was she also allowed to maintain her inheritance from her father? Is that right?
know. After she returned, I know that she was sort of banished to, I think, Tonnerre, where she was born, her hometown. And I know that due to that banishment, like she was restricted from doing certain things. For instance, it was right around this time, because she returned to France in 1777. So right around this time, the American Revolution was going on, and the French actually supported the American rebels in fighting the British, kind of a proxy continuation of the 7 Years' War. The Chevalier asked if she could travel to America and join the French troops aiding the American rebels, but she was denied because of her banishment. Like, she couldn't, for whatever reason, she couldn't leave Tonnerre, and she couldn't, assist in the Revolutionary War like she wished. So
now remember, she's like 50 some years old at this time, right? Like she's like 55, 56 here. So, right, we're not talking about some young whippersnapper anymore, doing all these requests. Like she's experienced, she's got a lot of life under her at this point in time.
Late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. She's a mature middle-aged lady. She's experienced in politics and in war and battle. In 1796, after the American Revolution has happened, the French Revolution is kind of starting. And during this time, there was a skirmish between the French and the Habsburgs. Dayon sent a letter to the French National Assembly offering to lead a division of all women soldiers against the Habsburgs. The government denied her request for that. Again, she's really trying to kind of like continue to make waves. She's really enjoying living in the public eye and being sort of a controversial celebrity. Very interesting life that she's led already, and we're still not done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, however, during the French Revolution, her royal pension that she had received as part of the negotiation to return to France ended. It was suspended. And so she's starting to hurt for money at this point. So what does she do to try and earn some money? She starts participating in fencing tournaments as a woman and bets men that they can't beat a woman in fencing.
So wait, and also, how old was she at this time?
This was 1796, thereabouts. So she would have been like 68, something like that. And there are paintings.
Iconic.
There are paintings of these fencing duels where she is like in a, middle-aged woman's black dress, like facing off with, a young French like cavalier. Like fascinating. Wow. And she would bet them that they couldn't win against a woman. And that's kind of how she made some money. You know, she obviously didn't get back to the level of wealth that she used to have, but it was enough to get by for a while. Her last few years, she ended up living with a widow named Mrs. Cole in England. We don't know a whole lot about that. So I don't know if they were, you know, romantic partners, if they were just, you know, gal pals or...
And they were roommates.
Oh my God, they were roommates.
They were roommates?
Maybe they were roommates. Who knows?
Yep, that's right.
But in 1810, Danielle died in poverty, unfortunately, in London at the age of 81.
Due to a wicked fencing accident that left her scarred and bloody and went down in a No, just natural causes. She died at 81 in London. You ready for that final twist, I promise? Oh, really? I was just about to say, where was the twist?
This is it. So, after Danielle passes away, a surgeon examines her body, and in the post-mortem certificate, they wrote that the Chevalier had, quote, male organs in every respect, perfectly formed, and also wrote that they displayed feminine characteristics, quote, such as rest remarkably full.
HRT, baby.
HRT didn't exist at this point.
Are you sure?
So, yeah.
Intersex?
I don't know. I would be willing to bet that maybe she had an intersex condition.
Oh, absolutely.
Apparently, her claim that she was assigned female at birth was sort of at odds with what the surgeon observed after her passing. So she's still this like figure of mystery.
Wow.
She is fascinating to me. Cool. I really enjoy her story. And in fact, after her death, the Annual Register in England wrote, quote, it must indeed be acknowledged that she is the most extraordinary person of the age. We have seen no one who has united so many military, political, and literary talents.
Wow.
So to the end of her life, she was pretty beloved in both England and France among the public. So as for her legacy, the Beaumont Society in the UK was named after her. It was founded in 1966. It's a long-standing organization for trans folks in the UK. In 1978, there was a sister organization of the Beaumont Society that was founded for trans folks in Ireland that was called the Friends of Aon. Last week, we talked about Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld, right? Mm-hmm. One of Dr. Hirschfeld's contemporaries was a sexologist named Havelock Ellis. I guess they had collaborated a couple times, so maybe we'll talk about him in the future.
Yeah.
But he attempted to coin a term for transgender people that he called Aonism after Danielle. And like, honestly, that term kind of slaps. I kind of dig that. Aonism.
I know. Aonism.
Like,
Aonism. Oh, right? Good band name. Good band name right there.
Not
Aonism.
Bad.
Ooh.
It sounds like, I don't know. There's gravity to it, right? Like, I'm not transgender. I'm an Aonist.
What are you? One of those Aonists? Hell yeah, I am.
But as we can obviously tell, since, you know, we come from the future, Aonism never really caught on.
No,
but I still think
it's
a term that kind of slaps. So
damn, I would love to be like named after a revolutionary spy from France.
Right?
That'd be awesome, you know?
And that's the life of the Chevalier Danielle.
This episode of Dot Femme is supported by our Patreon, duh. I mean, come on, you think a tiny trans podcast like us would have sponsors? I wish. No, we're supported entirely by our listeners. We're kind of like PBS that way, only queerer. Patreon.com/dotfemme. That's patreon.com/dotfemme.
So what do you think about Miss Charlotte?
Goals. Straight up goals. Also, I don't. There's no documentation, right? So there's only speculation. But like, you know, I wasn't jesting when I was talking about like HRT. That would be a good episode to do about HRT as well. But like, you know, I don't know when our HRT started to come around, even in like informal capacities, right? But intersex in this case, because we don't have any documentation suggesting otherwise, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Also, like the fact that, there's just general confusion about their gender, like all throughout this story. Even all these decades later, intersex also makes a lot of sense in that way. Like even they themselves are like, it feels very much like they're stuck in the middle. They are constantly splitting two different ways to different binaries. And it's, I don't know. It's fascinating. And you are right. This story has tons of twists and turns.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome.
This is like the roller coaster of trans history, right?
It is.
Doing research for this episode was like being in a mental Six Flags. It was crazy. Just so much like, oh my God, back end, like so many things. And there was a lot about her life, that we didn't get into, because the specific stuff that she did during the 7 Years' War, not really relevant to what we're talking about. So like, we didn't get into the details on that,
right.
But like she fought in some pretty crazy battles and, it's just fascinating life.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that strikes me the most about her, though, that I find personally inspiring is that she did not seem to care about what other people thought. Like she knew who she was confident in it, and sort of reveled in like the mystery and just messing with people, and really kind of like seemed to really love it. And it makes sense. She was a spy, but also like that's goals. I appreciate that.
Goals. 100%.
Absolutely.
Now I just need a pension to get someone to buy my wardrobe.
Yeah, good luck. Well, don't you have an ongoing segment about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 that you have to update people on?
Oh, I do. I do have an ongoing. All right. So spoiler alert, skip ahead like 30 seconds or so. So now Henry's, I don't know who this person is. He's a father monk figure dude who's kind of a monk, but kind of a priest, but kind of exiled, but kind of is cool. Anyway, Henry and his fellow Hans got captured, and so I got to play as this monk dude and got to rescue them. And there's a lot of political intrigue. There's a lot of like, I don't know, mixed political relationships that are happening in the kingdom, and nobody knows whose side each other is on, and it's awesome. Anyway, that's 30 seconds. Hello again, viewer. Glad to hear you back. I haven't completed the game at all. I'm still in chapter 1. I'm picking berries.
Which part of that was spoilers? Which part should I cut out?
Well, you're going to cut it out?
Well, if it's spoilers, you said it was spoilers.
This is an ongoing segment of Kingdom Come Deliverance. I don't know. It's, all of that was spoilers because they got captured. Oh, wait, no, I'm not supposed to say that if you're going to cut it out. God damn it. I see what you did. Set me up.
I didn't do anything. You set yourself up.
God damn it.
Congratulations. You played yourself.
You know what word really makes me... I don't even know. It's just like, I think it's just silly. I think it's funny. And the word is heck.
Heck?
Heck. Yeah, heck. Heck came back.
What the heck?
Yeah, exactly. And when people are like, oh, heck, I'm like... Where did that come from? It sounds like some like old Yooper thing. If Yooper means someone from the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, in case you don't know what that is. But yeah, it sounds like some old Yooper thing where they're like, oh yeah, hick, we gotta go out there and get the logs for the fire, eh? And we gotta go, huh?
I think it's definitely a Midwest thing. I remember hearing it a lot in Kansas growing up. So.
Yeah?
Yeah, along with and y'all.
Oh yeah. I said, oh yeah, in jest, and then realized that I was saying it unironically at the same time.
Yeah. Accents are weird. You can fall back into them pretty easy.
Oh yeah.
Because I like to think that I don't have an accent because I grew up in Kansas and I don't hear one.
That's right.
But I have cousins that grew up in Boston. And if I spend more than like 3 days with my cousins, Chris and Caroline, suddenly I have a Boston accent.
Oh,
It's wild.
I did a video recently on Fran Drescher.
Fran Drescher.
Yeah, from The Nanny. Mm-hmm. And like, she's got that Boston sort of accent, you know? And like, everyone comments on her voice just because it's so like bright and nasally. But I was like critically listening to her voice, and like, it's just straight up like East Coast accent. Like, it's just straight up.
Yeah.
I have been trying to learn more about accents as of late. It's been tricky because like accents are really about like confidence, and you have to really lean into it to make sure it works. And you can't second guess yourself. Like, you really just have to go all in. And so, yeah, I've been really trying to play with them more and learn. But then also, like, I have to learn all the linguistic side of accent study as well, which is a lot. But it's been a fun adventure in accent exploration. That's why my girlfriend and I are that we always come to your house and we are talking in Russian accent, because the Russian one is the one that neither of us are real good at.
Yeah. Okay. So here's a challenge for all the listeners listening to this on YouTube. If this episode gets 10,000 likes, Claire will do an entire episode in an accent of your choosing.
Oh, no. Oh,
no, the listeners choosing.
Oh, yeah.
And you won't be allowed to mess up once.
Please say Southern. Please say Southern.
Honest to God, if that happens, if we get like 10,000 likes on this episode on YouTube, I'll put on a Patreon poll and let people vote on Patreon on what accent you have to do for a full video or a full episode.
I mean, listen, viewer. As much as I like calling you viewer, I could talk to you real sexy like. You just got to give me an opportunity.
Here we go.
All right. I hope that you choose Texan for both of our sakes, because it's the only one that sticks around and then occasionally moves to Australian.
Yeah, your accents slip and slide all over the place. I've noticed.
I know they do.
Oh well, 10,000 likes, and you're not allowed to mess up. Better start practicing.
Okay. All right, fine.
Well, I guess on that note, we can call this an episode.
Is that an episode? How does our intro go again?
Well, next time we'll be talking about Leslie Feinberg.
She's from Parks and Rec, right?
No, that's Leslie Knope.
Oh my God, I'm feeling it. I'm gonna breakdance. Woo!
Oh, Feinberg. Easy mistake. Easily confused.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode. Remember, if you like this podcast, if you like what we're doing here, you can visit us at our website. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can listen to these episodes on YouTube, on Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. If you like this content and really want to support what we're doing here, please join our Patreon. It's the only way that we currently can afford to bring you this fantastic, spicy, and twisty-turvy trans history content. And with that, thanks for joining. I'm Danielle Gonzalez.
And I'm Claire Michelle. It's so good to see you. Thank you for being here, and have a wonderful night.
We'll see you next time.